Get on over. All right. Hi, everyone. We are flipping the script just a little bit.
Not flipping the script, we're explaining the script.
We are explaining the script. All right, so welcome. This is Book Buffet. I'm so excited now that you've decided to do this. So I am Courtney. I'm one of the teen librarians at the Addison Public Library, which is where we are, as you can see on Rachel's shirt. Rachel is also one of the other teen services librarians here, and we're like at the very last chapters of The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a Sherlock Holmes story. It is getting very twisty and turny, and Rachel has decided to write out a relationship web.
There's too many characters.
Okay.
Not too many, but there are a lot of characters.
Yes. So while we recap, first story begins with Sir Henry Baskerville.
Should I put him in the middle or the top?
Well, he dies right away, so I mean, like, he's more of like a footnote. I'm not gonna hit. I mean, it happens before the story even starts. Yeah, Sir Henry Baskerville dies mysteriously, and looks like he near about had. Love that. Looks like he was frightened to death and his heart gave out. Outside at his home, looks like he was running from something. Now, turns out that the Baskervilles have a supernatural curse that follows any of the Baskervilles who live in Baskerville Hall, that they are doomed to be hunted down by this hound. So the hound is important. So potentially the hound is this supernatural killer who killed Sir Henry. We learn about this from Dr. Mortimer, who is like their family doctor and was really prevalent at the beginning. I don't know if he's going to show up again. Dr. M. So Dr. M was part of discovering Sir Henry and whatnot. So Dr. Mortimer goes to Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. They're pretty much very centrally located in the story, obviously. And is like, hey, I'm actually not so much worried about this death. I'm actually significantly more concerned about Sir... Yeah, isn't this fun? You're being thanked for your whiteboardiness.
I need it, so I'm assuming other people also need it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. It's so funny. All right, so they're actually more worried about Recap. It's not Sir Henry that died. It is Sir Charles. There. See, we needed the whiteboard. You're right. This is important. So Sir Charles is dead, but his nephew Sir Henry is inheriting the estate. Yeah. And Dr. Mortimer is worried that Sir Henry is also going to be killed somehow, because he's also gotten a lot of different weird messages, and he was being followed around. His boot went missing at one point, and it was a brand new boot. Huh?
Sir Henry's boot?
Sir Henry's boot went missing, and it was a brand new boot. And you're drawing a boot. So it was a brand new boot, and he was complaining about it, and then the next day that boot came back, but then his old boot was stolen. So there's multiple boots. It's very confusing. So Holmes is like, yeah, this is super interesting. However, I'm really busy and I can't be bothered to leave London right now. But I will send you my best friend, Watson. So Watson and Sir Henry go to Baskerville Hall, which is located out in the moors. That's where they meet the butler, that is Barrymore, and his wife. Barrymore is pretty important.
Barrymore, Drew?
Like Drew. And then one M-O, just a regular Moore. Yeah. So Barrymore and his wife. Barrymore is a little bit sus. But we find out the reason for that is because there is also an escaped convict that has been hiding out in the moors, and turns out that the convict is actually Barrymore's wife's brother. Yes. And Barrymore and the convict have been sending signals to each other at night through like a lantern in the window to know when it's safe to deliver supplies. When this happens, they so one of the times when this happens, Sir Henry and Watson track Barrymore, like they follow Barrymore, find out about it, and they like go to chase down the convict, who runs away because he is like the fastest man on earth. But in the process, we find that there is a mysterious figure who is hiding out on the moors in this like shadowy, like he was standing on top of a rock. Watson basically like saw his silhouette in the moonlight and kind of like turned to go like, hey, and turned back, and this figure was gone. So it's like, who is this guy? Is he following people? What's going on? And it's very mysterious. I will get to who that is in just a moment.
I remember who it is.
Yeah, I know you remember who it is, but in a moment we'll get to that. Other characters that are important are Stapleton, who is a naturalist. He's one of the neighbors, and his sister. Yeah. So they're neighbors. Stapleton is a naturalist. He goes around and like explores the moors and catches butterflies and all sorts of things. And then he has a sister, and his sister and Sir Henry start crushing on each other and kind of start dating. However, very strangely, Stapleton is like wildly upset about this. Like, and everyone's just like, why, dude? You would want your sister to marry to the most powerful man in the area. You know, like, what are you doing? Yeah, Team Watson. We'll get to Team Watson in a moment. So it's all very like, what's up with that? But so like Sir Henry tries to propose to Miss Stapleton, and tries to kiss her. Huh?
Miss Stapleton. Do wife or sister have a name?
Women aren't allowed names. It's the time. However, we will get to one that we have a name for.
Yes.
So like he tries to kiss her, and Stapleton like runs out of nowhere and just socks him, and like is just very upset, and it's very confusing as to why. In all of this mystery, Watson is trying to figure out who this mysterious man on the rock is. So he finds out that Barrymore tells him that Sir Charles was, when Sir Charles died, this is actually fun to, when Barrymore, let me restart this phrase. When Henry and Watson went to go find the convict, but decided to let him go, Barrymore's like, I'll thank you by letting you know that Sir Charles was talking to a woman whose name is Laura Lyons. Yeah, just do Laura. So then Watson goes to talk to Laura, and she's like, I'm trying to divorce my husband. It's been really bad. I was being super secretive with Sir Charles because I didn't want his reputation to be harmed. And yada yada. So Watson leaves Laura and then goes and talks to her father, who is Franklin, who is like the pettiest man alive. This man delights in just ruining everyone's day legally. He just has a blast with it. But turns out that Franklin knows where the man who was on the mysterious man on the rock was. So he kind of gives clues to that, and Watson goes to go find that out and like tracks him down, goes for walkies across the moor, and into the stone hut, where we find out that the man on the moor, the weird mysterious figure, is Holmes, who has never been to London. Well, I mean, he's been to London, but like he left London right at the beginning and has been hiding out in the moors using Watson to like gather all this information. And it's been like, that's where Team Watson comes in, is like Holmes did him a bit dirty, but he's also was like really complimentary of all of Watson's efforts, which is nice. But in now reuniting the Dream Team, We find it was pretty anticlimactic. However, if you do remember, what was pretty climactic at that point is that we find out why Stapleton was so jealous about this relationship is because his sister is not his sister, but it is actually his wife. And they were pretending to be brother and sister because they're trying to kill Sir Henry. Or at least Stapleton is trying to kill Sir Henry. I think that the wife is actually trying to avoid this issue. Did you draw a heart around themselves? I just noticed that. So while all of this is happening, while they're talking about these things, Holmes is like, yo, Watson, didn't I tell you not to leave Sir Henry alone? And Watson goes, all right, I guess I should go it back. But at that moment, you start to hear the calling of the Hound, and you hear somebody screaming, and this is like in the dead of night, and you hear someone fall, and they go and they find the body of Sir Henry, who had fallen to his death. And they're like distraught because they're just like, for my own ego and wanting to do a grand reveal, I sacrificed Sir Henry. Sir Henry is now. One moment, please. One moment, please. Video capture, deactivate, activate. We fixed it. Okay. That was weird. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, weird little glitch. OBS crashed for just a hot second. So just to make sure that we know for sure where we were. Holmes and Watson were talking about this weird relationship where Stapleton was pretending that his wife was actually his sister in order to manipulate Sir Henry so that they could kill him. Weird. But in the process, while they're talking about it, because they're out in the moors and it's dark out and all that stuff, Holmes is like, Watson, you should go back to Sir Henry. I told you not to leave him alone. And Watson goes, oh yeah, I left him alone, because he kept doing that. Anyway, Watson follows instructions well in some regards, but really badly in other regards. But in the process, they start to hear the calling of the Hound, who is chasing somebody. Somebody falls off of a cliff, who is screaming, dies. It's Sir Henry. It's horrible. The boot is still there. But then, while they're discussing what they need to do next in order to, catch Stapleton, they double check the body because they're like, we need to properly take care of our friend. We can't just leave him here. They turn him over and realize it is not Sir Henry, but actually it is the convict who was wearing Sir Henry's old clothes because Barrymore had given him the old clothes. So, that's where we are. We are at the top of chapter 13.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Oh, I will say there's probably one other character, but I don't know if it's actually relevant. So we'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can
If it is a relevant thing, then
I'll add
there's
on.
a thing. Because once again, I read this eons ago. I don't remember if what I'm recalling is a thing or not. So.
Chapter 13, too.
We good?
The unlucky chapter.
The unlucky chapter. Well, let's see who it's unlucky for. The chapter title is called Fixing the Nets.
Okay.
Woo!
Fixing the internets.
Fixing the internets, indeed. All right, yeah. It looks like it's working. I'm so paranoid now.
It seems like the Wi-Fi went out for a second, and that maybe cut everything.
How rude.
Yeah.
Man. All right, cool. All right, so chapter 13, Fixing the Nets. We're at close grips at last, said Holmes, and as we walked together across the moor, what a nerve the fellow has. Oh, that's right. Slide pause. So they realized that it was the convict who died, and while they're looking at his body, Stapleton runs up. And he's like, oh no, what happened? Is that Sir Henry? Oh no. And they're like, no, it's not. So then he's like, yeah, He's very suspicious. And they're like, well, why would you think it's Sir Henry? And he goes, oh, well, I invited him over to talk to my sister.
They're still...
Well, so, like, only Holmes and Watson knows that they're married. So she's still under the ruse of being the sister. Because they haven't talked to Henry yet.
Right.
So, like, Stapleton's like, I invited Sir Henry over, so I expected him to be walking over, which means that he knew that Sir Henry would be out in the moor and would be possibly be chased by the Hound.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so that's where the nerve of this guy comes in. So what a nerve the fellow has. How he pulled himself together in the face of what must have been a paralyzing shock when he found that the wrong man had fallen a victim to his plot. I told you in London, Watson, and I tell you now again, that we have never had a foeman more worthy of our steel. I'm sorry that he has seen you, because Sherlock was like, I'm still going to be secret. No more. And so was I at first, but there is no getting out of it. What effect do you think it will have upon his plans now that he knows that you are here? It may cause him to be more cautious, or it may drive him to be desperate measures at once. Like most clever criminals, he may be too confident in his own cleverness and imagine that he has completely deceived us. Why should we not arrest him at once? My dear Watson, you were born to be a man of action. Your instinct is always to do something energetic. But, well, that's true. Let's run out into the wilderness with a stick to catch a convict in the middle of the night when you shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, I love you, Watson. You have flaws. But I do love Watson. So
We are Team Watson.
We are actually Team Watson, but you can support someone and also acknowledge their flaws. Okay. Your instinct is always to do something energetic, but supposing, for argument's sake, that we had him arrested tonight, what on earth the better off should we be for that? We could prove nothing against him. There's the devilish cunning of it. If he were acting through a human agent, we could get some evidence, but if we were to drag this great dog to the light of day, it would not help us in putting a rope around the neck of its master. Surely we have a case. Not a shadow of one, only surmise and conjecture. We should be laughed out of court if we came with such a story and such evidence.
They would pull the whiteboard into court. They're like, look.
Look.
The old boot.
The old boot. And on that point, there's Sir Charles's death. Found dead without a mark on him. You and I know that he died of sheer fright, and we know also what frightened him. But how are we to get 12 stolid jurymen to know it? What signs are there of a hound? Were there marks of its fangs? Of course we know that a hound does not bite a dead body, and that Sir Charles was dead before ever the brute overtook him. But we have to prove all of this, and we are not in a position to do it. Well, then, tonight? We are not much better off tonight. Again, there is no distinct connection between the hound and the man's death. We never saw the hound, we heard it, but we could not prove that it was running upon this man's trail. There is a complete absence of motive. No, my dear fellow, we must reconcile ourselves to the fact that we have no case at present, and that it is worth our while to run any risk in order to establish one. And how do you propose to do so? I have great hopes of what Mrs. Laura Lyons may do for us when the position of affairs is made clear to her. And I have my own plan as well. Sufficient for tomorrow is the evil thereof, but I hope before the day is past to have the upper hand at last. I could draw nothing further from him, and we walked, lost in thought, as far as the Baskerville gates. Are you coming up? Yes. I see no reason for further concealment, but one last word, Watson. Say nothing of the hound to Sir Henry. Let him think that Selden's death was a Selden is the convict. That's the name of the convict, is Selden.
Someone gets a name.
Someone gets a name. Selden. Oh. I mean, I think it's fair that, he died. He does deserve a name. Let him think that Selden's death was as Stapleton would have us believe. He will have a better nerve for the ordeal which he will have to undergo tomorrow when he is engaged, if I remember your report aright, to dine with these people. So Sir Henry is supposed to go over tomorrow to Stapleton's house and have dinner with them. So chance number 2 for Doggo to get.
Yes. Because he's got to cross the moor.
Yeah, indeed. He has to cross the moor. Moor. Yeah. In fact, my last name with an E right there means like people from the moor.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where that comes from.
So, where do you... Guilty. Courtney.
I don't know.
You're probably related to Stapleton.
How rude.
Is he not a people from the moor?
No, he's not originally from the moor.
Ah.
He moved here like 3 years ago or something.
But the Baskervilles.
The Baskervilles are long-standing people of the moor people.
Probably Sir Henry's cousin.
Oh, okay, I'll take that. I can stand the supernatural hound curse.
Yeah.
I'll give him treats. He's a good puppy.
Yeah.
Which Matt and I have a theory. It's a Chihuahua.
No.
They're vicious.
It's a basset hound. It's just a sad little...
Just so sad, like droopy basset hound.
Yeah.
I can get down with that. Just somebody who's got like a lot of bark but no bite. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So they are going to go and eat there tomorrow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if I remember right to your report, to dine with these people tomorrow. And so am I, says Watson. Then you must excuse yourself and he must go alone.
Oh, come on.
I know. We must lay the trap. That will be easily arranged, and now, if we are too late for dinner, I think that we are both ready for our suppers.
See? Supper comes after dinner.
I hate it. We have argued about this often, actually. All right. Sir Henry was more pleased than surprised to see Sherlock Holmes, for he had, for some days, been expecting that recent events would bring him down from London. He did raise his eyebrows, however, when he found that my friend had neither any luggage nor any explanation for his absence, or for the luggage's absence. Between us, we soon supplied his wants, and then, over a belated supper, we explained to the baronet as much of our experience as it seemed desirable that he should know. But first, I had the unpleasant duty of breaking the news to Barrymore and his wife. Because, this wife, her brother did just die, and that's sad. And they were trying to help him start a new life somewhere else. To him, it may have been an unmitigated relief, but she wept bitterly into her apron. To all the world, he was the man of violence, half an animal, half a demon. But to her, he always remained the little willful boy of her own girlhood. The child who clung to her hand, evil indeed is the man who has not one woman to mourn him. I've been moping in the house all day since Watson went off in the morning, said the baronet. I guess I should have some credit, for I have kept my promise. If I had not sworn to go out alone, I might have had a more lively evening, for I had a message from Stapleton asking me over there. But we knew that. I have no doubt that you would have had much more lively evening, said Holmes dryly. By the way, I don't suppose you appreciate that we have been mourning over you having broken your neck. Sir Henry opened his eyes. How was that? The poor wretch was dressed in your clothes. I fear your servant, who gave them to him, may get into trouble with the police. Oh, that is unlikely. There is not a mark on any of them as far as I know. Well, that's lucky for him. In fact, it's lucky for all of you, since you are all on the wrong side of the law in this matter. I am not sure that as a conscientious detective, My first duty is not to arrest the whole household. Watson's reports are most incriminating documents. Because Watson wrote everything down and sent him to Holmes. But how about the case, says the baronet. Have you made anything out in this tangle? I don't know that Watson and I are much wiser since we came down. I think that I shall be in a position to make the situation rather more clear to you before long. It has been an exceedingly difficult and most complicated business. There are several points upon which we want light, but it is coming all the same. We had one more experience, as Watson has no doubt told you. This is the baronet speaking. We had one more experience, as Watson no doubt told you. We heard the hound on the moor, so I can swear that it is not all empty superstition. I had something to do with dogs when I was out west, and I know one when I hear one. If you can muzzle that one and put a chain, I will be ready to swear that you are the greatest detective of all time. I think I will muzzle him and chain him all right, if you will give me your help. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do. Very good. I will also ask you to do it blindly, without always asking the reason. Great.
Okay.
And Sir Baskerville goes, just as you like. Okay.
Wow.
If you will do this, I think the chances that our little problem will soon be solved. I have no doubt. He stopped suddenly and stared fixedly up over my head into the air. The lamp beat upon his face, and so intent was it, and so still, that it might have been that of a clear-cut classical statue, a personification of alertness and expectation. What is it? We both cried.
What is it, boy?
What do you see? It's like a cat staring at the wall, like in the corner. You're just like, is there
I like
a
how he's
ghost?
like, I've met dogs before. I know what they sound like.
I know what dogs sound like. I've seen a dog.
Like, all right, let's get it.
Right on. I could see, as he looked down, that he was repressing some internal emotion. His features were still composed, but his eyes shone with amused exultation. Excuse the admiration of a connoisseur, said he, as he waved his hands towards the line of portraits which covered the opposite wall. Watson won't allow that I know anything of art, but that is mere jealousy, because our views upon the subject differ. Now, these are really very fine series of portraits. Well, I'm glad to hear you say so, said Sir Henry, glancing with some surprise at my friend. I don't pretend to know much about these things, and I'd be a better judge of a horse or a steer than a pitcher, and apparently a dog. I didn't know that you found time for such things. I know what is good when I see it, and I see it now. That is a Kneller. I swear that lady in the blue silk over yonder and the stout gentleman with the wig ought to be a Reynolds. They are all family portraits, I presume. Every one. Do you know their names? Barrymore has been coaching me in them, and I think I can say my lessons fairly well. Who is the gentleman with the telescope? That is Rear Admiral Baskerville, who served under Rodney in the West Indies. The man with the blue coat and the roll of paper is Sir William Baskerville, who was the chairman of committees in the House of Commons under Pitt. And this cavalier opposite me, the one with the black velvet and the lace? Oh, you have a right to know about him. That is the cause of all the mischief, the wicked Hugo, who started the Hound of the Baskervilles. We're not likely to forget him. So the story goes that long ago, Hugo Baskerville took a shine to a local woman, kidnapped her, held her captive, and while he's like, I'm gonna marry you, and she's like, no thanks, and he's like, too bad, yoink, and takes her. And then while he's partying with his buddies, she escapes out the window. He finds out, chases her across the moor, and so the legend goes that a farmer was seen who saw them running, was terrified because the girl ran by. Hugo ran by with on his horse, and then he was being chased by a devilish hound. And then later the girl and Hugo were both found dead out in the moors. It looked like he killed her and then the Hound killed him. And thus the curse is placed upon the family. That's the story.
Okay.
So, Hugo. Yeah, I gazed with interest and some surprise upon the portrait. Dear me, said Holmes. He seems quite meek-mannered man enough, but I dare say that there was a lurking devil in his eyes. I had pictured him more as a robust and ruffianly person. There is no doubt about the authenticity, for the name and the date, 1647, are on the back of the canvas. Holmes said little more, but the picture of the old royster, that's a fun word, seemed to have a fascination for him, and his eyes were continually fixed upon it during supper. It was not until later, when Sir Henry had gone to his room, that I was able to follow the trend of his thoughts. He led me back into the banqueting hall, his bedroom candle in his hand, and he held it up against the time-stained portrait on the wall. Do you see anything here? I looked at the broad-plumed hat and the curling love locks. I love how you're, like, poised to, like...
Cause what year is it right now?
It's, like, 18-something.
Okay, so...
He's long dead. Yeah.
Well, yes. We know he died, but, like...
That is true.
How... Is he, like, Charles's great-great-grandfather?
I mean,
uncle?
is related.
Yeah.
Yeah, it...
Is a Baskerville.
Yeah. They are related.
Okay.
So,
He's just, like, up here somewhere.
To follow your suspicions, I can't remember what his name is. Oh, that's funny.
But there were Baskervilles before Hugo, but Hugo was the first one with the Hound.
Hugo is the first one with the Hound. There were definitely more Baskervilles.
Okay. And then we don't know.
Baskerville had kids. So apparently he had sons Roger and John. I just randomly managed to find that. And also a sister named Elizabeth, who is probably... I know, who is probably Sir Charles's. And I think that Sir Charles had a brother who died before. And from what I remember from very early in the book, he was like the spitting image of Hugo. And just as much of like a black sheep of the family type of a thing. But he like went to prison and he died of disease or something in a different country, that type of thing.
Okay. And Henry's
So he's like long
is
dead.
Yet another.
Yeah, I guess. So there might be, or like it's nephew in a little bit more removed sense. I'm not sure though.
Okay.
They didn't really line out the lineage
We're pretty sure the brother never had kids.
that we're aware of. Yeah.
But maybe one of these people had a kid who had a kid.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So like the family overall like moved out and moved on.
Yeah.
But yeah. But that guy is dead, yeah. Okay. Back to our suppositioning. So do you see anything here? I looked at the broad-plumed hat and the curling love locks, the white lace collar, and the straight, severe face that was framed between them. It was not a brutal countenance, but it was prim, hard, stern, and with a firm-set, thin-lipped mouth and a cold, intolerant eye. Is it like anyone you know? Well, there is something of Sir Henry about the jaw. Just a suggestion, perhaps, but wait an instant. He stood upon the chair, and holding up the light to his left, in his left hand, he curved his right arm around the broad hat and round the long ringlets. Good heavens! I cried in amazement. The face of Stapleton sprang from the canvas.
Wait, Hugo? Stapleton? The canvas is Hugo, right?
Well, the canvas is of Hugo,
Yes.
but Holmes is like,
But Stapleton looks like Hugo.
Stapleton looks very much like Hugo. You're like froth. All right, hold on.
Okay.
Haha, you see it now. My eyes have been trained to examine faces and not their trimmings. It is the first quality of a criminal investigator that we should see through a disguise. But this is marvelous. It might be his portrait. Yes, it is an interesting instance of a throwback, which appears to be both physical and spiritual. A study of family portraits is enough to convert a man to the doctrine of reincarnation. The fellow is a Baskerville, that is evident. With designs upon succession. Exactly. This chance of a picture has supplied us with one of our most obvious missing links. We have him, Watson, we have him. I dare swear that before tomorrow night he will be fluttering in our nets as helpless as one of his own butterflies. A pin, a cork, and a card, and we add him to the Baker Street collection.
Oh.
That's a great phrase. Like, that was poetry. Good job, Sherlock. All right, he burst into one of his rare fits of laughter as he turned away from the picture. I had not heard him laugh often, and it has always boded ill to somebody. I was up betimes in the morning, but Holmes was afoot earlier still, and so forth I saw him as I dressed coming up the drive. So he took off and then he came back. That was a really weird sentence. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Yes, as we should have a full day today, he remarked. He rubbed his hands with joy of action. The nets are all in place and the drag is about to begin. The nets. Yeah, gathering up the nets. We're going to catch something. We'll know before the day is over whether we have caught our biggest lean-jawed pike or whether he has got through the meshes. Have you been on the moor already? I have sent a report from Grimpen to Princeton of the death of Selden. I think I can promise that none of you will be in trouble in the matter, and I have also communicated with my faithful Cartwright. That was the kid who was bringing Sherlock food.
Right.
I have communicated with my faithful Cartwright, who would certainly have pined away at the door of my hut as a dog does his master's grave, if I had not set his mind to rest about my safety. What is the next move? To see Sir Henry. Here he is. Good morning, Holmes, said the baronet. You look like a gentleman you look like a general who is planning a battle with his chief of staff. That is the exact situation. Watson was asking for orders. And so do I. Very good. You are engaged, as I understand, to dine with our friends, the Stapletons, tonight.
Who do we think the Stapletons are? Just neighbors.
So the Stapletons are neighbors.
They are neighbors.
Yeah, they're neighbors.
Okay.
They're like several miles down the road type of a thing.
Across the moor.
Yeah, across the moor.
Just,
there's a
okay.
pathway that you can do over the stuff. So, yeah. They live in like a small, like, Henry's in like an estate, and they live at some house, apartment thing. I don't know. A place that I don't remember the name of. It's named, but like every building and home is named, I swear.
Yeah.
All right. So, right, you are engaged, as I understand, to dine with our friends, the Stapletons, tonight. I hope that you will come also. They are very hospitable people, and I am sure that they would be very glad to see you. Oh, I fear that Watson and I must go to London.
Oh.
To London? Yes, I think that we should be more useful there at the present juncture. The baronet's face perceptibly lengthened. I hoped that you were going to see me through this business. The hall and the moor are not very pleasant places when one is alone. My dear fellow, you must trust me implicitly and do exactly as I tell you. You can tell your friends that we should have been happy to have come with you, but the urgent business required us to be in town. We hope very soon to return to Devonshire, which is where they are. Will you remember to give them that message? Well, if you insist upon it. There is no alternative, I assure you. Immediately after breakfast, we will drive into Combe Tracy, but Watson will leave his things as a pledge that he will come back for you. Watson, you will send a note to Stapleton to tell him that you regret that you cannot come. I have a good mind to go to London with you, said the baronet. Why should I stay here alone? Because it is your post of duty. Because you gave me your word that you will do exactly as you are told, and I tell you to stay. All right, then, I'll stay. One more direction. I wish you to drive to Merripit House. Send back your trap, however, and let them know that you intend to walk home. So Merripit House is where the Stapletons live. Okay. The Stapleton Baskerville couple.
Yes.
Who is a sister, but not. They're very confusing. Like, so
Super suspicious.
yeah, so take your buggy trap. So ride there, but then send it back so that you're gonna walk back in the moor. And then Baskerville goes, to walk across the moor? Yes, but that is the very thing which you have so often cautioned me not to do. This time you may do it with safety. If I had not every confidence in your nerve and courage, I would not suggest it, but it is essential that you should do it. Well, then I will do it. And as you value your life, do not go across the moor in any direction, save along the straight path which leads from Merripit House to the Grimpen Road, and it is your natural way home. I will do just as you say. Very good. I shall be glad to get away as soon after breakfast as possible, so as to reach London in the afternoon. I was much astounded by this program, though. I remembered that Holmes had said to Stapleton on the night before that his visit would terminate the very next day. It had not crossed my mind, however, that he should wish me to go with him, nor could I understand how we both could be absent at the moment which he himself had declared to be critical. There was nothing for it, however, but implicit obedience. So we bade goodbye to our rueful friend, and a couple of hours afterward we were at the station at Combe Tracy, and had dispatched the trap upon its return journey. A small boy was waiting upon the platform. Any orders, sir? You will take this train to town, Cartwright. The moment you arrive, you will send a wire to Sir Henry Baskerville, in my name, to say that if he finds the pocketbook which I have dropped, he is to send it by registered post to Baker Street. Yes, sir. And ask the station office if there is a message for me. The boy returned with a telegram, which Holmes handed to me, and it ran, wire received. Coming down with unsigned warrant. Arrive 5:40. Lestrade. Do you know who Lestrade is?
I should.
You should. Honestly, this is the first time that he's been mentioned, but he's a recurring character in all Sherlock stories.
Yeah.
He's like constable,
Okay.
head copy man.
That's what
So they partner up enough.
he's their man on the
Yeah,
side.
he's their man on the police force. So basically, if Holmes says jump, Lestrade says, where do I land? So, which, it's good to have that. So that is the answer to mine of this morning. He is the best of the professionals, I think, and we may need his assistance. Now, Watson, I think that we cannot employ our time better than by calling upon your acquaintance, Mrs. Laura Lyons. So, up there, Laura. Oop, there it is. His plan of campaign was beginning to be evident. He would use the baronet in order to convince the Stapletons that we were really gone, while we should actually return at that instant when we were likely to be needed. That telegram from London, if mentioned by Sir Henry to the Stapletons, must remove the last suspicions from their mind. Already I seem to see our nets drawing closer around the lean-jawed pike. Mrs. Laura Lyons was at her office, and Sherlock Holmes opened his interview with frankness and directness, which inconsiderably amazed her. I am investigating the circumstances which attended the death of the late Sir Charles Baskerville, said he. My friend here, Dr. Watson, has informed me of what you have communicated, and also of what you have withheld in connection with that matter. What have I withheld? She asked defiantly. You have confessed that you asked Sir Charles to be at the gate at 10 o'clock. We know that that was the place and the hour of his death. You have withheld what the connection is between these events. Well, there is no connection. In that case, the coincidence must indeed be an extraordinary one. But I think that we shall succeed in establishing a connection after all. I wish to be perfectly frank with you, Mrs. Lyons. We regard this case as one of murder, and the evidence may implicate not only your friend, Mr. Stapleton, but his wife as well. The lady sprang from her chair. His wife! She cried. The fact is no longer secret. The person who has passed for his sister is really his wife. Mrs. Lyons had resumed her seat. Her hands were grasping the arms of her chair, and I saw the pink nails had turned white from the pressure of her grip. His wife, she said again. His wife. He is not a married man. Sherlock Holmes shrugged his shoulders. Prove it to me then. Prove it to me. And if you can do so, the fierce flash of her eyes said more than words. I have come prepared to do so. Or this is her, she's saying, prove it to me. Hard to tell. There's like the way they write.
Yeah.
Okay. So Holmes is like, I have come prepared to do so, said Holmes, drawing several papers from his pocket. Here is a photograph of the couple taken in York 4 years ago. It is endorsed Mr. and Mrs. Vandeleur. So another name, Vandeleur.
Stapleton's or Baskervilles?
So Stapleton's name is Vandeleur, but he's a Baskerville. But, that could also be
Yeah.
down the line. But you will have no difficulty in recognizing him and her also, if you know her by sight. Here are 3 written descriptions by trustworthy witnesses of Mr. and Mrs. Vandeleur, who at the time kept Sir Oliver's private school. Read them and see if you can doubt the identity of these people. She glanced at them and then looked up at us with the set, rigid face of a desperate woman. Mr. Holmes, she said, this man had offered me marriage on condition that I could get a divorce from my husband. He has lied to me, the villain, in every conceivable way. Not one word of truth has he ever told me, and why? Why? I imagine that for all it was my own sake, but now I see that I was never anything but a tool in his hands. Why should I preserve faith with him who never kept any with me? Why should I try to shield him from the consequences of his own wicked acts? Ask me what you like. There is nothing which I shall hold back. One thing I swear to you is that when I wrote the letter, I never dreamed of any harm to that old gentleman who had been my kindest friend. I entirely believe you, madam, said Sherlock Holmes. The recital of these events must be very painful to you, and perhaps it will make it easier if I tell you what has occurred. And you can check me if I make any material mistake. The sending of this letter has suggested to you by Stapleton. He dictated it. So the letter that was sent to Sir Charles to meet at So he dictated it. I presume that the reason he gave was that you would receive help from Sir Charles was for legal expenses connected with your divorce? Exactly. And then after you had sent the letter, he dissuaded you from keeping the appointment? He told me that it would hurt his self-respect that any other man should find the money for such an object, and that though he was a poor man, he would devote every last penny to removing the obstacles that divided us. So he's like, send the letter. No, wait, I should take care of you. Don't go. Like,
But he's also like, you should get divorced so we can get married.
Right.
But I'm married.
Yeah, dude, but she didn't know that. She
Right.
thought, yeah.
Right.
This is very frustrating. He appears to be a very consistent character. And then you heard nothing until you read the reports of the death in the morning? No. And he made you swear to say nothing about your appointment with Sir Charles? He did. He said that the death was a very mysterious one, and that I should certainly be suspected if facts came out. He frightened me into remaining silent. Quite so. But you had your suspicions? She hesitated and looked down. I knew him, she said. But if he had kept faith with me, I should have always done so with him. I think that on the whole, you have had a fortunate escape, said Sherlock Holmes. You have had him in your power, and he knew it, and yet you are alive. You have been walking for some months very near the edge of a precipice. We must wish you a very good morning now, Mrs. Lyons, and it is probable that you will very shortly hear from us again. Our case seems rounded off, and difficulty after difficulty thins away in front of us, said Holmes, as we stood waiting for the arrival of the express from town. I shall soon be in the position of being able to put into a single connected narrative, one of the most singular and sensational crimes of modern times. Students of criminology will remember the analogous analogs. It's analogs. Analog. Analogus.
Nope.
Analogus. It's evading. Where ANALOGOUS.
Analogous.
Oh,
Right?
maybe. So analogous is it. You can hear it because it was connected up to that. All right.
Analogous.
Did you even hear that?
Analogous.
Analogous. So it is comparable in certain respects, typically in a way which makes clearer the nature of things compared.
Yes.
Right on.
These incidents can be compared.
Yeah. So like analogy,
Yes.
root word. All right.
English.
Students of criminology will remember the analogous incidents in Godno, in Little Russia, in the year of 66, and of course there are the Anderson murders in North Carolina. But this case possesses some features which are entirely its own. Even now, we have no clear case against this very wily man, but I shall be very much surprised if it is not clear enough before we go to bed this night. The London Express came roaring into the station, and a small, wiry bulldog of a man had sprung from the first-class carriage. We all three shook hands, and I saw at once, from the reverential way in which Lestrade gazed at my companion, that he had learned a good deal since the days when we had first worked together. I could well remember the scorn which the theories of the reasoner used to be to excite in such the practical man. And now this guy is like, so originally this Lestrade was like, you are a bother. And now he's just like, what's up? And the first thing he says is, anything good? He asked. And Holmes says, the biggest thing for years. We had 2 hours before we need think of starting. I think we might employ it by getting some dinner, and then, Lestrade, we will take the London fog out of your throat by giving you a breath of the pure night air of Dartmoor. Never been there? Ah, well, I don't suppose you will forget your first visit.
Okay.
That's the end of chapter 13.
Oh.
And it's almost 11:30. And we are going into chapter 14, which I think we need to save for next week.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
the last chapter?
So chapter 14, titled The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's also a pretty beefy one.
Yeah.
But everything
I'm
will
gonna
be thrown in.
Reveal it all.
Yeah, and then chapter 15 is fairly shorter, called A Retrospection.
Oh.
So
It's probably like Watson back.
yeah,
point,
yeah, like going over the
anyways.
details of all this other nonsense.
Here's what we found out.
So,
So.
all right. So Stapleton is under a false name, pretending that his sister is that his wife is his sister. His wife is luring Sir Henry, and Stapleton is pretending to be single to manipulate Laura, and to manipulate Laura into getting Sir Charles to be at the gate when he was. And she was like, look, I know this is a bit shady and whatnot, but I thought that he was loyal to me, so I was being loyal to him, but now that I know that he's been cheating me,
All bets are off.
all bets are up. And we find that there is actually a biological connection between Franklin and Laura, in that he be petty, so be she.
Yes.
She learned from the best, really.
Yeah. So, at this point, the Barrymores have kind of taken a back seat. Because
Yeah.
we figured out
Yeah.
why they were a little suspicious, because they didn't want Selden to be captured.
It was
Not
very much like a
grieving.
red herring, but it also led to finding more information out.
Yes. But
Okay.
now the question is, because they're Baskervilles,
Mm-hmm.
are they also cursed? What connection do they have?
That's a good
To
question.
these people, what do they really want from Henry? Because clearly it's not physical.
It is not physical,
It's their cousin,
but Henry
not
is
hers. Maybe,
rich,
but, right?
quite rich.
Probably financial.
Yeah, so there's definitely some financial things.
And Holmes has the trap set
The trap is set. We now also have Lestrade, who is here now.
to make an arrest as soon
Mhm.
as the trap is sprung.
Yup.
Henry's on his way for dinner. Baskervilles think this pair is back in London.
Right.
They're like, great, they're out of our business. We can do what we need to kill, perhaps.
Yep.
Henry to get his money. Is probably
Trying to
what
find.
it all comes down to.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the part where they kind of talk about Sir Charles's brother. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah. But yeah, so lots of suspicious little things going on
Yeah.
all over the place. And it's all gonna.
I feel like we kind
Be
of know,
revealed.
like we know some motivations here, but what we truly do not know yet is like, is the Hound real?
Yeah,
Is
that's the question.
Hound-
Is there actually a supernatural curse,
Yeah.
or like,
Is there a Hound? Is it just
which Sherlock and Watson are very much like, no,
two
there's no
Stapletons?
supernatural curse.
Yeah.
However, is there a Hound? Like, is Stapleton like hiding the Hound somewhere and chasing and like sending it loose? You know, like
Or
that
is
sort of
Stapleton
thing.
just like using a megaphone to be like, "Arr, arr, 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 arr."
Like a Scooby Doo.
Yeah. Do we have a Scooby Doo villain?
Is this a Scooby Doo villain or like a Batman villain?
Yeah.
Are they like dressed up in a mask and a megaphone Scooby Doo villain, or have they like trained hounds and very nefariously going their way, or is it a combination of both? I don't know. We'll find out. All right, so that's next week's nonsense, and I feel like you might have to come back next week to rehash all of this again.
Yeah.
Alrighty. For now, everyone have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.